My female 53, soon-to-be ex-husband Roger, 47, whom I forgave for his affair, came home with a baby 4 months ago. His girlfriend, 22, couldn't handle it anymore, so she brought the baby to him at work and left. To the best of his knowledge, she's in Spain. I allowed him to stay so long as I didn't have to do anything. Anything. Well, about a month later, Roger had a heart attack. It didn't kill him, more's the pity, but he's very weak and incapable of doing anything for himself. Since he isn't up and about, he cannot care for his child. He also cannot drop off and pick up his son at daycare. I've been helping, but I'm done. My kids are full grown. I shouldn't be having grandkids anytime soon. I do not have any desire to care for a baby. I told Roger that I wanted a divorce and I contacted the mother's parents. I know the father through friends. I said they had until Friday to come get their grandchild, or I was calling Child Protective Services. They just left with the baby. But they scolded me for being so cold towards a baby that had done me no harm. I view that child differently. Roger is recovering and I will be moving out. The house is in his name, but I've never contributed to it. I've put away the equivalent of 22 years of rent and interest. As per our prenup, my savings are my own. I work and don't need anything from this marriage except myself. My kids tried telling me to stay and help their father. I said they were welcome to come over and help him clean himself and the baby. Both declined what I felt was a fair offer. I do not feel that I'm acting badly. However, Roger, our children, his child's family, and a few mutual friends think I am. Perhaps writing this out and seeing the responses will give me clarity. Not the idiot. Basically, everybody is trying to dumb down their responsibilities on you. The baby should be with its family. You're not cold to want to care for it. It's weird they wouldn't want to take the kid in any way. Poor child, your grown kids can take care of their dad. When he cheated, your relationship ended, and he's not your problem anymore. Yes, it's not OP's responsibility, and if there is a cold person, it's the mother of the baby who literally abandoned him. And OP's idiot of a soon-to-be ex who cheated with a near child, apparently didn't use birth control, then showed up expecting OP to take on his affair baby. I assume the baby mama is younger than or the same age as his kids. But OP is the wrong one? No, everyone else is ridiculous. Exactly, but for some reason, I get the feeling that the affair partner is going to hear about the heart attack and the divorce and will come swooping back in to fix this mess and get her share, and everyone will be like, she's amazing, and they all live happily ever after, and OP will still be villainized. Poor OP can't win in the eyes of these idiots. But we know she's more than justified in washing the hands of her soon-to-be ex, his infant, and his affair partner's parents. Good riddance. They should be thanking you for not calling CPS the second your ex fell ill. You've done much more than expected for a baby that's not yours, let alone a child from your husband's affair. LOL at your kids telling you to stay and take care of him and the baby, but when you offered them the same deal, they declined. Because of course they did. Also, when Roger's kids learn they're splitting their inheritance with an affair baby, see how well they take it. I'm sorry you're dealing with all this, and I wish you the best in your new life. Hugs. My husband and I are expecting a baby. We don't know the gender, but I could give birth at any time now. We've chosen a boy's and a girl's name. The choices are generally compromises. We didn't agree on names really and had different beliefs about names, I guess. He also believes in formal names and kids having solid middle names. I believe in naming the child what you want to call them, something I got from my parents who named me and my siblings that way, and my siblings went on to do the same. For example, I'm Lainey, just Lainey. I don't have a more formal version of my name. I never felt like I needed a more formal name. My name works for me as a 34-year-old woman just as much as it did when I was 4. This led to trouble for us because I gravitate more to names my husband considers nicknames. I found his choices very stuffy and unappealing, and he found my suggestions juvenile. But he liked Theodora and I like Thea. We eventually agreed to the full name for him, but I'd always use Thea. For a boy, we went with Declan for him and Dex for me. Again, he used Declan and I used Dex. But my husband doesn't like that I only say Thea or Dex. It bothers him that the full name gets ignored, and he said he believes my family and a lot of our friends will use the names I do. I told him the compromise only worked on the grounds that it was okay, that he could use the full and I could use the nickname. He said the full name would seem like it would be ignored otherwise and that I should use both to make it fairer, and I told him that's just him getting his way. I told him that if he wanted a better compromise, he'd better come back to the table and be willing to look at different names. Before, names like Bryn, Lyra, Piper and Freya were ruled out by him for not meeting his formal standards because they were shorter names. He said they were nickname light. But shorter, more formal names feel like the only other possible compromise for us, and he doesn't agree. So I told him he needs to accept what we already compromised on, or we find a better compromise, which doesn't mean he's getting his way. He told me I was very dismissive of his concerns. I told him I was already going with a legal name I didn't care for under our compromise, so he should be more willing to work with me if he wants to change the names. Am I the idiot? You came up with a perfect compromise, and I really like the name and the variants you came up with. You did a great job, and he's suddenly, or still, unhappy. Even if the girl's name was, I don't know, Stephanie, most people, friends, family would call her Steph. If the boy's name was maybe William, he'd be called Will. The only exceptions are short names like John, James, Lyra, etc. But he wants a longer name. He won't avoid nicknames. He thinks, if it's a girl, her friends will call her Theodora. I really don't understand his struggle because the nicknames will almost always be there. Plus, what will his family call the child? No nicknames at all? Just Stephanie or William always? No Steph, Will, ever? I don't understand this part and I would like more information about his family. So, not the idiot. You came up with a perfect compromise and he stepped back on it. It doesn't even make sense since he won't avoid nicknames. Does he really expect a teenager to introduce herself as Theodora to her peers? If he's that concerned, he should consider names that are less of a mouthful. Anthea is just as valid for the Thea nickname and less stuffy. No one but your husband will call your daughter Theodora. People usually tend to find and use abbreviations. You will not find a solution if short, two-syllable long names always feel like nicknames for him. My fiancée Ali, 31 female, is the type of person who calls people 2 or 3 times in a row when she wants to get a hold of them for anything. The first time she did this to my parents, they were driving to a concert, and I asked her to call my folks from my phone. She called, but they didn't pick up. She immediately called my mom again, and I asked what she was doing. My mom picked up right away, worried. Ali asked our question, and I told Mom it was a false alarm and hung up. She asked why my mom had been irritated, and I explained to her that my family only calls twice in a row if it's an emergency. Ali has never followed this and will repeatedly call them for the most mundane stuff. If one doesn't answer, she'll sometimes call my other parent. That's to say, a couple of weeks ago, she broke her leg while working around the house. I was in a workshop that day and could only check my phone on breaks. She called my parents since they live a couple of streets over, but neither answered their phone. She ended up having to call an ambulance. I got her message about 2 hours after she fell and went to the hospital. She was pretty mad at my parents when I got there. I let them know what happened and they also rushed to the hospital to apologize and check on her. She didn't want them coming in, so they sat outside for a bit, got her flowers from the gift shop, and eventually went home. I took some time off work to care for her, and my parents have been offering as much help as possible. Her sister drove in to help so I could go back to work. Last night, I decided to make a nicer dinner than usual and wanted to invite my parents. I gave her a heads up that I was inviting them and asked if she wanted me to arrange some of the chairs and tables so we could all eat together. She got mad that I wanted to invite them and that I shouldn't want to see or speak with them after they ignored her. Her sister agrees with her and feels I'm putting my parents over my soon-to-be wife. Until now, I haven't said anything to her about the situation, but I did then and told her it was a massive screw-up in communication on everyone's part, and we all talked it out to put it behind us. Neither she nor her sister think she should stop being mad at them. Was I an idiot to invite my parents over? Edit, my parents were sitting outside for their quiet time when she called. She called 3 times for my mom, then 2 times for my dad, which sadly is normal for her. She didn't send them a text. It's common for them not to answer calls or texts and wait to return them later when they do that. I had to do the 2-call routine so they knew it was urgent. Not the idiot. Ali made the usual number of calls that she did for any occasion and didn't text to let them know this was actually an emergency. OP certainly doesn't need to cut his parents off over this. This story is the same as the Cry Wolf story. Guess Ali did not learn it. She didn't listen, and so your parents had no way of knowing it was an emergency instead of just another Tuesday. Does she have an explanation of how they should have known, or is she assuming that when she wants to get a hold of someone, they should drop everything and talk to her whether or not it's urgent? Because the latter isn't respecting other people's time and priorities. Everyone was focusing on the double calls, but it wasn't an issue. Your fiancée likely felt scared, and her fear ramped up when she couldn't reach anyone to help. I wouldn't focus on the double call situation, but on her being hurt and unable to reach anyone in an emergency. Arguing over phone habits isn't going to resolve any of this, and from her perspective, she feels like she's getting blamed for feeling alone and scared. My mom died when I was in kindergarten, and my dad didn't remarry until I, 26 male, was 22. He didn't date at all while my siblings and I were kids. His wife is okay, she's not my favourite person, and I find her a little off in her relationship with me and my siblings. They feel the same. She gives the vibe that she expected to be accepted as our motherly figure instead of as our dad's partner or wife. We're close to Dad. He's never really given us the same vibe. He'll still hang out with us individually without his wife or each other around. But she definitely gives that vibe. It's weird to me because we were all adults and I'm the baby of the family, so my siblings were even older when she married our dad. And to think she would fill any kind of mom role in my mind is weird. My dad loves her though and he's happy. She's nice enough other than this, so we don't rock the boat. However, this is now a situation where I did start to rock the boat, and I wonder if I'm the idiot for that. So my fiancée Ellie and I are getting married, and we decided we both wanted to walk down the aisle. She wanted to walk with her parents, so I thought it'd be kind of cool to ask my dad. He said yes. He got really emotional about it. He said he wished my mom could be there to walk with us, and yeah, I do too, so much. My dad's wife later approached me and told me she would gladly walk me down the aisle instead, and she wanted me to know that I didn't need to ask my dad instead. I asked her what she meant, and she assumed I wanted her but was afraid to ask. I told her that wasn't what I wanted at all. She told me that was unexpected, and when she heard I'd asked Dad, she expected I would want her instead. So I asked her why she expected to walk me down the aisle when she was not my mom. She looked offended when I asked her, and she told me I didn't need to be so tactless about it. I told her I was genuinely asking and told her I couldn't understand. She then said she clearly misunderstood her relationship with my siblings and me, and that I could keep my thoughtless questions to myself. My dad was so confused by her reaction too. I told him what happened, but he had no idea. She's really angry though. So, am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Frankly, the part they put it over the top for me was her seeming belief you wanted her to walk you instead of your dad, not even just with your dad, which would already be a lot and very presumptuous. She's out of her mind. She likely assumed it was like the father-daughter and mother-son dances a lot of weddings do now, so the son had to ask his dad instead of his mother. It's awesome that she's prepared to walk with you and desires to connect and be a positive influence. However, she needs to realize she's not entitled to that and needs to respect your boundaries. Ideally, she would have offered to walk with you and accepted whatever your answer was. Honestly, I don't get the stepmom entitlement thing. My mom died when I was a kid. My dad remarried twice. The second time, third wife, was when I was in my early 50s. She loved to introduce me as her stepdaughter. I only met her a few times, and she's way closer to my age than Dad's. Just marrying someone doesn't make you a real parent. Perhaps it's time to talk honestly with your dad about how you feel about his wife and let him handle that. I met my father in September of last year. I, a teen male, had recently lost my mom to cervical cancer and found out that my grandparents and two of my aunts did not want to keep taking care of me. Instead of letting me go to my aunt out of state, they contacted the man who wanted nothing to do with me before and involved a social worker. I would need to go to him instead of the aunt I knew who did want me. Because a social worker was involved, she tried to put me with my biological father over my aunt. I pleaded with her to let me live with my aunt, and my aunt also pleaded for this, but we were denied. I was told a biological parent will always get custody over an aunt or uncle who has no legal rights to the child, especially when my original guardians, my grandparents, sent me to my father instead. So, in October, 3.5 weeks after I met him for the first time, I moved to another state to live with my father and his family. For those who will tell me I was lied to or whatever, my father has admitted he knew about me, but he was disgusted and embarrassed by his promiscuous ways in the past and for having premarital intimacy, and he decided to start over. He said his wife was thankfully very open-minded and was happy for me to live with them and have a relationship with them despite my origins, which have nothing to do with me. My father and his wife are very religious. I'm not. I was raised by an atheist mom and had a mostly atheist family, and I have no interest in joining or taking part in anything religious. This is a serious point of contention with my father and his family, who tried taking me to church and trying to set it up so I would join their church and get baptized. I have refused. I have also said I want to live with my aunt. but that gets denied. I talked to her via direct messages and video calls, but they're not the same. She did try to petition for custody, but the different states added complications, especially when a social worker was still actively involved. Things got way more tense recently because 2 of my father's other kids were questioning me on why I don't pray and stuff like that, and I told them I didn't believe. They tried to get me involved with their church stuff, and I said no. They got upset and tried to do all this converting stuff, and they're only middle schoolers, for goodness sake. My father tried telling me I shouldn't shoot it down so quickly, and he told me to give it a try, and I said no. Then his wife decided to get her say, and she told me I should be grateful for a chance to be saved. I'm being very stubborn and should show them respect as my parents to let them guide me into religion. I told them they were not my parents, they were randos I was forced to live with, and I would never take part in their religion ever, and they needed to accept that because I don't believe in God or anything. They didn't like my closed-mindedness, and they were angry I spoke to them with such finality. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Am I right in understanding that your bio-father does want you to live with them now, despite having nothing to do with you in the previous 15 or 16 years, and you have the other and preferred option? This seems enough to label him as an idiot already. Trying to indoctrinate you, as long as it's not forceful or has other important things contingent on it, it's not too bad, but you definitely have the final say. It's straightforward. Tell all his church fellows that you are the kid he abandoned because you were born out of wedlock, that you are an atheist, that you have a loving aunt, but they are forcing you to live there. These religious good people care for their reputation above all else. I wouldn't be surprised if they're twisting the story to make your dad seem like a martyr. Oh, and the OP should end with, "Oh, and since I have no friends here, I'm really looking forward to meeting all your kids." I have to wonder if Dad has only taken OP in because of SSI payments. OP should be receiving benefits after his mother passed away. Where is this money? The money goes to the person raising the child. The money is for the child's benefit but doesn't go directly to the child. I wish you the best and hope you can move in with your aunt sooner than when you turn 18.